describe the situation. In the last hour or so, if you Googled Antifa.com, it would take you straight to Joe Biden's website, his official campaign website. Odd situation, we don't know who's behind that, but it raises an interesting leadership question. Should Joe Biden, the Democratic Party, Kamala Harris, should they publicly denounce the Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization?
They should. I think they're afraid to. It's, in my book, it's virtually a part of their campaign, Antifa. The Democrats act like, gee, I don't know exactly what that is. Take a look at Portland, take a look at any place you want to take a look at. They're all over the place. They were here. We put on a 10-year prison sentence if you knock down any statues 2 months ago, and since then we haven't seen much of them. We had to send border security. We sent actually Homeland and border and different forms of Homeland to Portland in order to, you know what we had to do. We had to save. They wanted to knock down a courthouse, a $500 million courthouse. They wanted to burn it down, knock it down, and they were easily able to defend. But the mayor and the governor of the state, they didn't want to do that, and we actually sent our people there, and they did a great job. And they did it easily, but in the meantime, they went to other parts of the city, and they're doing damage. And we're recommending to the governor that they call in national security, call in the National Guard. We're willing to we would stop that problem in 1 hour.
On this episode of Just Informed Talk, we are going to take a look at the latest breaking news, including a story about an Air Force chopper that was attacked with gunfire, forced to make an emergency landing that just so happened to be a part of President Trump's official security detail. We're going to take a look at that story, plus we're going to check out how the fake news is attacking QAnon, once again only showing their panic at what is about to come. President Trump calling out the treason and Twitter stepping up the censorship. So stick around and check out that and a whole lot more. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Just Informed Talk. I'm your host, Craig. You guys know the drill. Thanks to everyone who's hit that subscribe button. If you guys haven't done it yet, please come here to the landing page, click the big red subscribe button, then hit that bell and select all so you get notified as soon as all of these videos get posted. Plus, stick around to the end of this video where we're going to talk about God's grace and how it is truly greater. And today, we're going to look in the book of Hebrews at heroes of faith and what they all have in common that can help us understand how we can strengthen our own faith in God and Jesus Christ. So please, I encourage you all to stick around and hear that at the end. But as always, we get into the latest Q posts. We haven't had any new ones yet. 4620 explaining the infiltration that they did instead of invasion to launch this insurrection against President Trump, against the American people, to help the globalist Chinese Communist Party backed insurrection that is actively in major cities across the United States right now, lobbying for things like vote-in mail so they can fraudulently try to steal this election, while intimidating local governments by using violence and destruction as a form of negotiation, which can only be likened to a socialist communist takeover of our country, which we will not be allowing, and we are standing in opposition to as we speak. So that's where we left it off. We haven't had anything new. If you guys want to go read through this, you're more than welcome, because we have covered this here on the channel before in previous videos. But with that, I want to get into the latest stories. Before we do that, though, this video is brought to you in part by Brave Browser. And what is the Brave Browser? Well, it's an internet browser, just like Google Chrome, Firefox, Safari. It's free. And when you use the link in the description of this video to download it, they'll make a contribution to this channel. So it's a win-win. You get a great browser that will block the ads and make your internet experience that much better. It's got a built-in firewall, VPN, Tor browser, and so much more that I really want you guys to try this out and tell me what you think for yourselves. But if you want to get it for free and support the channel, use the link in the description of this video to download it today. It works on your desktop, your laptop, or your smartphone, and it's a great product. So with that, we're going to get into the latest posts or stories here, I should say. We have this major story breaking this morning talking about a helicopter in Trump's detail hit with gunfire over Virginia. Can you imagine that? It seems as though the story goes on to talk about how the FBI is investigating an incident involving an Air Force helicopter assigned to President Donald Trump's support detail that was hit by a bullet over Virginia that was shot from the ground. McClatchy News reported an Air Force helicopter was forced to make an emergency landing at a Virginia airport Monday after someone shot at it, injuring a member of the crew, local and military officials told McClatchy. The UH-1N Huey helicopter is assigned to the 1st Helicopter Squadron at Joint Base Andrews and had been running a routine training flight, the base said in a statement. The FBI dispatched special agents and its evidence response team to Manassas Airport after receiving reports that a helicopter was shot from the ground nearby. The FBI's Washington field office said in a statement, officials at Manassas Regional Airport said they received a call about 12:20 alerting them that a military helicopter was inbound and that paramedics were on the way, said Airport Operations Officer Richard Allenbaugh. It says the helicopter was about 10 miles northwest of the airport near Middleburg and was flying about 1,000 feet above the ground when it was hit, according to the officials. Now, apparently there was somebody injured, and one crew member was injured in the helicopter, but has since been treated and released from the hospital. So thankfully they survived this. But overall, you can see what the story is here for yourself, and it's just indicative of the panic that we're seeing across the board where, you know, they're constantly coming at President Trump from all angles. And this could have been just some nut job in his backyard, you know, taking pot shots at a helicopter. He thought, you know, the black helicopters following him everywhere. Or this could have been an actual probing attack. Now, what's a probing attack? That would be the type of attack where an enemy combatant who is seeking to engage in battle with you will test your response, your ability to respond, and what the effect is of an attack, so that then they can monitor that and then make a coordinated plan of attack for a future, obviously engagement. So whatever it is, I'll tell you, we're gonna get details on this story, and it is one of the biggest stories that I think is going underreported today. But of course, the fake news doesn't talk about anything. I mean, you have President Trump literally saying that Obama, Biden, Brennan, Clapper, Comey all committed treason, and crickets. Nothing from the fake news, but you get a whole lot of this live coverage today of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris making their first appearance together. And I'll tell you what, I watched this speech just because I wanted to see what, you know, it's all about. And I'll just give you a few comments about their speech that maybe some observations that you guys shared with me on this. First of all, Joe Biden was obviously amped up on something when he came out there. They gave him something powerful because he came out swinging, and he looked pretty good. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I'm being objective here. The guy didn't look like he was lost. He was actually making full sentences. Yes, he was reading off a teleprompter, but he seemed to be, you know, pretty much aware of where he was at. So that's kind of like a big deal for him. But after, I don't know, about 5 or 10 minutes of the speech, you could tell that whatever they gave him before he walked out on that stage was definitely starting to wear off, because he just looked like he was lost. He was getting lost in the teleprompter. He didn't know who to turn to, where to turn, where to look. He's like looking up. Every time he tried to make eye contact with the camera, you could tell he just completely lost his place on the teleprompter. So it's kind of like one of those things where, and then if you saw the venue that they chose, it's really a disturbing venue, because it was just, ultimately here, I'll show you the venue. You can see here, look at all these people. This is how they're sitting. And it's just a bunch of reporters. There was nobody, no public involved. And this is something I wanted to talk about how terrifying the idea of a Biden or any Democrat candidacy or presidency is looking right now. Because could you imagine if these people take power in this country? They're going to be shutting down the free press and replacing it with the fake news media complex. They'll be amplifying that. They'll probably have a major bailout for the fake news. They'll probably come attack anyone and silence and censor anyone who tries to exercise their free speech. They'll probably try to get the First Amendment revoked. They'll probably try to get the Second Amendment revoked. They're gonna have these closed events where they're not even gonna let the public near them. They're going to be living in a bunker the whole time. Joe Biden's just going to move from his basement to the bunker underneath the White House or something, right? And Kamala Harris, let's talk about her for a second. Her speech. Well, her speech could best be, described as disingenuous, because everything she said was like these little jabs at Trump, calling President Trump delusional and other things that, for not buying into their, socialist propaganda or their C-19 hoax lies. It really is shocking to me, though, that she got up there and just played that part, man. I mean, I'll tell you, she played that role as the, sympathetic, meek, but I don't even know how to describe it. It was just so disingenuous and so fake. It was like, she's talking about, and I don't want to talk about her family or anything, but the way that she, kind of had it all like, and when I'm doing this and this and that, and I'm like, oh, it just makes you want to vomit, because you can just tell there's nothing real about her. You're reading it off of a teleprompter, first of all. It's not like, even if you wrote that stuff, you're just trying to intimate the feelings that you think people want to see. Because nobody acts like that in real life. And if they do, I usually find them to be kind of the most annoying people around. But that's me personally. So if you're one of those people, I apologize, and we can still be friends. But look, the funny thing is, I watched it. I wasn't impressed. I turned it off, because after a while, because it was just so redundant and it was just all the same Democrat talking points, lies. One of the interesting things that did happen, however, was the power outage and no AC at this first campaign event, which is just an indication of how the Democrat Party is run overall. It's just completely in shambles and ineffective and broken. Because, and this goes further to what I was saying before, when you think about Joe Biden and Kamala Harris being running mates, there's no way they're going to run these two people together. And one of the things that lends the most credence to it is that we've all been talking about, there's been theory, speculation across the internet for a while now. Usually the fake news, if they see the stories and they'll attack, the stories, but if they're true, if they're really true, they won't talk about them at all. And in this case, they won't talk about the fact that everybody said, and QAnon has predicted, and others have predicted, that we're not going to have a Biden-Harris ticket. It's going to be somebody's going to replace them at either the convention or somewhere down the line. So if that is the case, and we do end up seeing an Obama Clinton ticket or something else like that, then it would be telling to me to look at how the fake news is analyzing or even reporting on it, if they are at all. And you don't see anything. It's complete crickets from the fake news. Well, if that is the case and they're not covering it, then that might be because there is some validity there to the speculation. Now, Kamala Harris, I mean, you can look at her past, her history. The idea that this woman could be the vice president of the United States is terrifying, just as terrifying as a Joe Biden presidency, really, because these people don't seem to be aware of their low IQ. I don't know how to say that without sounding, kind of mean, but, you can say all you want. She was the top law enforcement officer in the state of California. Well, look at California. I live here. It's awful. She probably, with a bunch of other people, helped ruin this state, I should say. And now it's like the only parts of the state that aren't totally destroyed and awful are the ones that are mostly conservative. And the liberal parts of the state are just awful, lawless, dirty, crime-ridden. There's a lot of ways you could describe it. And that's an effect of their leadership. And that's the sum of their leadership, is that what they do is they get into power, they abuse the power to enrich themselves and their friends and whoever else, helps with their criminal activities. And then they don't care if everything is destroyed in their path and in their wake, because they're just going to move on to the next political power grab. As you see here, a woman who went out and said the worst things you could imagine about Joe Biden is now his running mate, and she just forgets it all, like Tara Reid. Are we just going to forget about what happened there? I don't know. We'll see. Another story here. Joe Biden's ex-husband exposes Joe's adulterous affair, lies, and campaign bribery. So apparently what happened here is there's a book that's coming out, and it's going to be talking about Joe Biden's ex-husband, because obviously Joe Biden's wife died, and this whole thing talks about how it seems that Joe Biden was having an affair with his now wife, who was married to another man, before his wife even died. I think that's the gist of it. But you can read through the story. Patrick Halley doing great reporting as always. At the National File, and you want to read through, you can read all the details. It's really kind of an interesting story, but it shows you the kind of person I think that Joe and Jill are, and it's really disturbing. And could you imagine having these people running our country again? That's the real question. Now, John Ratcliffe, in other news, coming out and saying Attorney General William Barr will deliver justice to any Obama officials who committed crimes. Well, I hope so. I really hope so, because when the President of the United States tells me that our former president, former vice president, former head of national intelligence, former head of the CIA, and former head of the FBI committed treason, I would like to see some justice. I would like to see some indictments. I'd like to see some trials, right? I would like to see people held accountable for the fact that they abused the intelligence services and our law enforcement agencies to spy on illegally a president, to then cover it up, and to this day have the brazen audacity to go out on platforms like Twitter or on platforms like MSDNC, the fake news, and still espouse these lies about President Trump and try to undermine the integrity of and security of our nation by facilitating an insurrection and coup against the sitting president. I would like to see that. John Ratcliffe seems to think that is imminent, and this is a story that was put out in July, but nonetheless, we have to remind ourselves of these important facts, right? And I'm hearing, it's going to be sometime around Labor Day, before or after. So, I mean, look, it is what it is at this point, but yeah, I would like to see those arrests just as much as the next guy. So here's another one I want to talk about, and this is Matt Walsh over here on Twitter, talking about the national media's blackout of the Cannon Hinnant story is breathtaking. It's possibly the most heinous murder in memory, a child executed at point-blank range while riding his bike in his dad's yard, and the national media has said nothing at all. Yeah, it's this story right here. Playing 5-year-old. We talked about this yesterday, too, on the channel. I've been trying to report on this story. But a 5-year-old was shot by this man in front of his 2 sisters, and it is the most disturbing story you will hear. And, where's the marching protests? Where's the people out in the streets with signs and screaming justice for this young child who was, shot for no reason in his front yard while he's playing? Think about it. And you don't hear it on CNN. Why? Because it doesn't fit their narrative. So you understand the deceptive nature of the fake news when you look at this story and understand how underreported it is, and then you compare that to a story like George Floyd, a guy who was obviously strung out on drugs, it seemed, and was obviously involved in violent crime before this, right? They said allegedly that he pointed a gun at a pregnant woman or something to that degree. Yet that guy gets a funeral with Al Sharpton and a bunch of other prominent community leaders with a gold-plated casket. And this kid, this poor young man, this poor soul, gets nothing. Gets nothing. Not a word. So think about that. Truly disturbing. And another way that this hurts, there are other stories out there. For instance, in Chicago, when those looters were out there smashing everything and robbing and looting stores on that Magnificent Mile there in Chicago, there was a 2-year-old cancer patient at the Ronald McDonald House, a charity that helps children who are suffering with terminal illnesses, that couldn't even have his birthday. Could you imagine? You're a parent of a child who's going through the worst kind of imaginable disease, and you can't have his birthday because people are smashing the windows and threatening you. A lot of these people were locked in the building itself because I guess the Ronald McDonald House is right there near that area, and it was having the front window smashed in. I don't know. This is dark stuff, and it's really disturbing. But here's a bright spot, I guess. Florida Sheriff bans deputies and office visitors from wearing masks. It's about time. We got to start taking a stand to this, because what are they doing to us? right? They lock us in our house, which is basically a prison. They force us to wear a face mask, and then they force us to social distance from each other. It's all a social engineering push, right, to make us distrust our fellow brothers and sisters in this world, to make you less trustworthy of me and me less trustworthy of you. Why? Because when we get together and we realize that we're very similar, even if I know people on the left, right, who have come and we can sit down and have a conversation in my own family, who we respect each other, and we can have that conversation, and we can debate, and we can have one view one way and one view another way, and we can at the end of the day say, okay, well, we agree to disagree, or yeah, I think you have a point there, maybe you think I have a point. They don't want us doing that, because once all the objective facts get laid out, it's almost impossible for people who are unaware, right, the non-red pilled people, to not realize the truth, and not at least say, yeah, I'm against child trafficking. I didn't know that Bill Clinton did 20-something trips on Epstein's plane. I didn't know that, Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation, supposedly took all that money from Haiti. I didn't know that, half of our Congress was bought and paid for by big tech or by China or by this or by that. I didn't know that Epstein may have been running a blackmail operation for some clandestine intelligence service that, may have been some secret society that's using that information to blackmail top officials and to change the world as we know it. The fake news calls you crazy, but the objective facts, when you look at them, point to logical conclusions. And when you have that, you got to censor it. And when they realized they couldn't actually shut us down online, digitally, because we figured out ways to get around it, and the internet, gave us that connectivity, they said, okay, well, we have to shut it down in real life. So now wear your face mask and stay 6 feet away from everyone, and that is you're being socially engineered to be terrified of your fellow citizens, which causes division and causes distrust, and it causes our country to fall apart, when we should be coming together more now than ever against the evil that exists, against the corruption that exists, against the two-tier justice system that has failed the American people for the last several decades going back. And look, it is what it is, right? Attorney General William Barr putting out a statement today on the resignation of the Seattle police chief, and I wanted to read this just because it, seemed very, very poignant and worth sharing. He says, quote, I was disheartened to learn. Now, of course, I'll give you a little backstory. The Seattle police chief, Carmen Best, has resigned after her salary was cut and funding to her police department was cut immensely. It says, quote, I was disheartened to learn of the resignation of Seattle police chief Carmen Best. Her leadership and demonstrated commitment to her oath of office rejected or reflected all that is good about America's law enforcement in the face of mob violence. She drew the line in the sand and said enough. Working tirelessly to save lives, protect her officers, and restore stability to Seattle, her example should be an inspiration to all who respect the rule of law and cherish safety and security in their communities. This experience should be a lesson to state and local leaders about the real cost of irresponsible proposals to defund the police. Now, they're celebrating in Seattle at the city council like this is some kind of victory, but really it's a victory for the violent socialist thugs who are terrorizing our streets. It's not a victory for the American people, the hardworking people who are looking at this as they've lost their entire livelihood. Some people, their businesses down in Seattle and Portland and other places are completely gone, probably never going to come back. They put their faith in America and the American dream that they would be protected, and they were deceived, and they were sold out by politicians who hate them and or just don't care about them in general, just completely indifferent. Here's another story I want to talk about. Facebook's Chinese communist linked fact checker Lead Stories is censoring articles about CCP influence in the election and the U.S. elections. Can't make this stuff up. So look, Facebook, which I don't use, by the way, because I think Facebook is evil. And, they say, oh, it's kind of hypocritical. You use Twitter. Well, you know what? Got to have some way to communicate with people, at least in Facebook, though. I know that place is awful. But for all of you who are still there, they're censoring you using Chinese communists that are linked to Chinese communists. right? The lead stories, the foreign run fact-checking platform used by Facebook has censored a National Pulse article highlighting Speaker Nancy Pelosi's acknowledgement of a U.S. government report which concluded that, quote, China prefers that President Trump does not win re-election, unquote. Lead stories recently announced a partnership with the CCP-linked TikTok app. Great. Their fact checkers are basically, sycophant SJW, virtue signaling communist socialists. And there is an infiltration and invasion of our country through this propaganda. And the CCP is taking full advantage of that. They're taking full advantage of the fact that the fake news is basically misleading the American people, and they're using that to their advantage. So another story I wanted to talk about here real quick, Willie Brown. And everybody talks about Willie Brown. It's always a big joke about him and Kamala Harris. But the fact of the matter is that Willie Brown has admitted openly that not only did they date, but yeah, he probably is the reason why she got to where she is today. It was not really that much of what she did as much as it was what he says right here. Yes, we dated. It was more than 20 years ago. Yes, I may have influenced her career by appointing her to 2 state commissions when I was assembly speaker, and certainly helped her with with her first race for district attorney in San Francisco. I have also helped with the careers of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Governor Gavin Newsom, Senator Dianne Feinstein, and a host of other politicians. They just admit it, right? So Willie Brown's helping Pelosi, Newsom, and Feinstein, and now Harris. California is the worst state in the country. For being such a nice state and having such variety and so much abundance, it's been taken over by people, by the most menial, stupid, feckless people I've ever seen in my life. Another story I want to talk about real quick here is that now, according to people I've talked to on Twitter, they're who are on Twitter using it and being suspended. They're suspending people for directly quoting the U.S. code. Think about that. People quoting the U.S. code on treason and other things are being suspended from Twitter. So Twitter's more than happy to help facilitate communist Chinese propaganda. They're more than happy to facilitate the Iranian, representatives and talking their rhetoric about how they're going to destroy America and so on. But they won't allow you to post literal quotes out of the U.S. code. Yeah, that's where we're at. And they're panic. And this is another thing that they do on Twitter. You can't quote the U.S. code, but now they've made it, right, so that you can choose who can reply to your tweet. So you can make a tweet now, and you can actually censor it so that only people who follow you on Twitter can reply to it. Why would they break this out on the same day that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris come out? Well, because now they're just going to start censoring the comment section on Twitter. So now you can't even comment on certain posts. And you get gems like this from this Renee Bracy Sherman, who says, OMG, I got the choose who can reply tweet option. And then she talks about how she had an abortion and how she honors it and how she talks about it with her niece and how thankful she is that she did it. And she's kind of bragging about the way that nobody can respond to her. Nobody can say anything to her. And, look, in my opinion, abortion's murder. In my opinion, this person's glorifying the murdering of their unborn child. And I think it's disgusting and sick that Twitter has helped, facilitate this kind of environment, right, where they glorify such evil. But then are you really surprised? I'm not. By the way, also, everyone is panicking. Maggie Haberman, Jared Kushner, and Ivanka Trump's little buddy over at the New York Times, saying QAnon followers are hijacking the Save the Children movement. Okay. Yeah, why? Because we want to help children? I guess that's not allowed, according to the New York Times now. Rise of creeping nut bars, the inevitable conclusion for the party of Trump, talks about Marjorie Taylor Greene, a QAnon supporter who won her House primary in Georgia. Congratulations, Marjorie, by the way. I hope that you end up as a representative in Congress. But yeah, they're nervous. And they're all nervous across the board, writing everything they can to talk about how it's a Russian disinformation campaign. Well, I'm not Russian. I'm as American as it gets, buddy. And we're here to save this country, and you want to call it a disinformation campaign from Russia, then I'm going to just go out on a limb and say you're probably the disinformation campaign producer with your lies and your gaslighting that they do every day. And of course, you know, you have people, the senior manager of social media at ABC saying, daily reminder that QAnon has nothing to do with stopping child sex trafficking, and if anything, crowds out legitimate efforts by mass posting garbage. What? How does it even make sense? How is doing research and shining a light on the sick, evil stuff out there somehow crowding out legitimate efforts? By who? Show me the legitimate efforts, Evan. It's not you. I don't hear you ever talking about these major stories that we've been talking about here, like Epstein. And look, I haven't fact checked and gone through his entire Twitter feed. I really don't even care, because this guy is just another example of the fake news and how they want to try to gaslight this movement and attack us for bringing the truth. You know, like this kind of stuff is simple. A mom here figured out that these toys that her daughter had, look, when they take the clothes off the doll, right, and you put it in hot water or put it in cold water, it actually has this like invisible paint that actually comes to activates, and it has these little child dolls in like disgusting lingerie and like just, it's the most disgusting and evil thing you can imagine. But yeah, I'll leave links to everything if you want to watch any of it and get the info from the video here. But I appreciate you guys checking this out today. And a few more things before we go. If you guys want to help support the channel, watch these videos, share them on your social media, and leave your thoughts, theories, and insights below. Also, don't forget you can find me over here on Twitter for now at JustinformedU. Also, I'll be on Twitter over at the other handle, which is JustinFormed Clips, which is at informed_news. And don't forget to check out the new YouTube channel I've been working on to get all my video library up, JustinFormed Clip, over here on YouTube. It's basically the whole library of clips I have. I'm getting them up onto another channel so that you guys can access them and share them and get them out there as much as you want. So go check that out. I'm also over here on Parler at JustinFormed Talk. BitChute.com/JustinFormed Talks, the official backup channel. And of course, I'm over here at JustinFormedNews.com, the official website for Just Informed Talk. And if you want to make a contribution to help keep this channel alive, there's Patreon, Patreon.com, crowdfunding website, monthly donation. You know, they've done everything they can to put this channel in business, but you guys keep it alive with your support, and your donations here are very much what keep this channel alive. So it's a monthly donation. If you guys want to help keep the content coming here, please check that out. I also have a GoFundMe set up. If you want to make a one-time or anonymous donation, links to everything will be in the description below this video. Now, before we go, we do a segment at the end of each episode called God's Grace is Greater, where we talk about God's grace and how it is truly greater. And today, I want to talk about Hebrews chapter 11. Now, it's a pretty fascinating chapter. It goes through the lives of all the different, what you guess could call kind of like the main people from the Bible and their acts of faith. And it talks about these heroes of faith. But I want to share this because faith is so important right now. We have to have faith in Christ. We have to have faith in God. And the times that I find myself having the most doubt and otherwise just uncertainty are when I'm not focusing on God, when I'm not talking to God on a regular basis, when I'm not praying, when I'm not sharing my prayer with others and talking about the gospel and being an advocate for Christ every moment of every day. If I find myself where I'm focusing more on things of this world and things that are happening that affect me, that's when I lose my way. And this verse, which is out of chapter 11, verse 1 through 3, is going to help us understand what faith is, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. It says, "Now faith is the reality of what is hoped for, the proof of what is not seen. For by it our ancestors were approved. By faith we understand that the universe was created by the word of God, so that what is seen has been made from things that are not visible." I know that sounds a little vague, but it then goes on to say, in the next few paragraphs after that, it talks about the faith of Abel that offered to God a better sacrifice than Cain. And by this he was approved as a righteous man because God approved his gifts. And even though he is dead, he still speaks through this. And then it goes on to talk about, Enoch, and it talks about Noah and Abraham and so on. But in all the stories that it tells, there's a common theme, and that is their faith. They had incredible faith. It wasn't easy. They had to make decisions that they weren't sure of. They had to put it to God and let God guide their decisions in their way. And that's something that we can do in our own lives. We can relinquish that feeling that we have to control everything to God and say, God, please help me find a way. And if you pray and you're earnest and you go out and you live righteously and you do the right thing and you help others and you live a Christ-like life, you will find the way to success. And that success is going to be whatever God leads you to. If you're truly humbled in your heart and righteous before God, he will give you that path. And that's why I want you all to remember to have faith in everything that you do. And just remember that what is faith? Faith is, it says, it's the reality of what is hoped for, the proof of what is not seen. Right? The reality of what is hoped for and the proof of what is not seen. They had faith, all of these people, all the people that they tell the stories of here, they had faith and God rewarded them. So now when it looks tough, when it looks dark, when it looks like we're not going to make it, that's when we have to have the most faith, because God is going to save us. God is going to deliver us, and we are going to succeed. Because remember, God wins. And that's where I'm going to leave it. Thanks for watching this episode. Remember to hit the subscribe button, hit that like button if you guys like this content and want to see me make more. That's it for me, though. Thanks for watching Just Informed Talk. My name is Craig. Godspeed and God bless each and every one of you, Patriots.